Okay, so this is part two. I was saying that each of these nerves, these cranial nerves that take care of our body in a lot of ways, that you could call it our hardware, our hardwiring. You know, a lot of it gets has long memory of, you know, the cranium, the brain, and lots of different structures in the body have the memory of basically everything that's happened to us. And interestingly, it's in the research now that it's also, we have in our DNA what happened to our ancestors 7 generations back. I'm going to return to that. You know, that our DNA is impacted. We affect our DNA all the time, by the way. Environmental, you know, energetic choice, I would believe, affects how our DNA responds, or genes turned on or inhibited. And that gets passed down. They're finding out, and this is a very interesting topic. So nerves have these 2 channels in particular. There's the motor. It's going to tell some tissue, you know, it's going to connect with a motor neuron in the muscle fibers and tell it to contract. Boom. And then so that's one nerve function. That's the motor function. You also call that the efferent nerve pathway. And then there's also going to be an afferent pathway, which is basically, afferent is somatic. It's collecting information. So there's the motor, which is boom, telling the muscles to fire, or giving order, like boom, do this, enact this. And then there's like, yo, what's happening in here? Whatever proprioception, whatever things that area does monitor, temperature, muscle tone, fluid levels, different aspects of homeostasis, right, that our bodies are tracking, tensions, right, are going to track and get sent up, and, you know, tell the cortex, tell different aspects of the brain will light up around different kinds of information going through the limbic system, right? Can't forget I kind of group, as a function, I kind of group the vagal and the limbic function. We're just going to call it that, you know, like that deeper brain, fight or flight processing, and also and then in regards to the vagal nerve. For those of you who don't know, the vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve. It's one of the nerves that comes down the neck, and it's actually monitoring. It's mostly somatic. It's mainly taking in information about how taken care of we are. Are we taken care of? Let me check it out. What's the breath rate? It's going to check out the diaphragm and notice, like, oh, what's the oxygen intake here? Yeah, what is that diaphragm function? What is that diaphragm function saying? And then also going into the viscera. How is this being feeling in its environment? What is the feelings going on here? So the vagus nerve is coming down, and 80% of it is assessing the level of care and that this being is received. Another way to think of the care is the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is, for instance, you know, triggered by things like oxytocin, being around someone that you love, and someone that makes you laugh, someone that brings you joy, being in company that lifts you up and lifts up your heart and fills your cup of joy. That's going to be you know, your oxytocin, those kinds of, you know, those neurotransmitters that are like, oh, this is like feeling good. That helps. That's one of a few things. Bonding, closeness, touch, good nourishment, good sleep, respecting cycles of rest and activity. Those are all things that will tell the vagus nerve that this being is safe enough to digest their food and to think about procreation. I mean, have a little fun. Is safe enough in their environment, is being cared for enough that they can think about what makes them feel good. So that's the parasympathetic system. Our culture is not teaching us to value environments like that. I mean, that should be that's me on my soapbox. We should be prioritizing those environments and those types of experiences for all beings. And and then also the vagal nerve will also be measuring levels of tension, lack of oxygen, lack of ease in the intercostal muscles to open and constrict to allow good flow of oxygen. They say that we need a certain amount of parasympathetic, vagal nerve tone health to even allow the limbic system, which is the system that says, oh, if we're being threatened, we don't get to use our higher minds. No, we don't. If we feel threatened, if we feel restricted, oppressed, unsafe, in harm's way, on any level that our nervous system is tracking, stress, any of that, that the vagal nerve will then tell the brain, like, we can't digest food right now, shut it down. We have to stay on alert right now because any second we might need to run. That's what the vagal nerve is going to say. Like, we don't have time to relax. We don't have time to take it easy. We don't have time. We have to be ready. We have to be ready because we're on alert. That's what the vagal nerve will tell our brain. If our vagus nerve is mostly in a sympathetic nervous system tone, the sympathetic nervous system tone is more likely to go into full-on freeze flight. What is that? Freeze, fight, freeze. There's, flee or fight, right? Flee, fight, and freeze. Thank you. That's the three. So the unsafe environment, the vagal nerve, limbic system, they're like the checkpoint. I'm pointing to the part of the brain where that is. It's basically like between the ears and back in the basal ganglia. Okay, the basal ganglia is pretty much behind the eyes, and nose. Pretty much at the, trying to turn to show you here. Pretty much, at that, this far back. You get the idea. So, we can use our facial muscles to, do this work of tending, the work of encouraging the parasympathetic nervous system. If it's not already attuned to, if the parasympathetic nervous system is not, in full gear, if it's not used to being enacted regularly, consistently, if there's been, for instance, for those with, periods of high stress, illness, injury, losses, changes, mental health issues, and as a healthcare practitioner who works with the general public, a certain slice of the general public, my view could be skewed because people are coming to me because they want to feel better. It seems to be that most of us have periods where we can't be, where it's just not set up for us to be in parasympathetic nervous system for long periods of time, meaning like days or weeks or months at a time. Right? Because we have demands. We have economic demands. We need to be owing and producing if we depend on our labor for our sustenance, our basic sustenance. So it's a lot of output on our point to meet measures that may or may not directly attribute to our parasympathetic tone. So if you are someone that that has had good parasympathetic tone, if you've been in good environments and you've been blessed and surrounded and you generally have an easygoing nature, and bless you and keep doing what you're doing because it'll be there for you if ever needed. And then for those of us who have gone through periods of stress or illness or losses, all this kind of stuff that is life. It really is life, and it does happen. It is everyone. We all get it. We all have our own. We all get a hand of cards, and it comes at one point or another. And so, all the encouragement for us not to compare ourselves to each other, but just to learn from each other. Try to learn each other's lessons if possible, because maybe that's a mistake you don't have to make. But Yeah, so I'll leave it at that for now, and then I'll start talking about more specific ways that we can enact the musculature and the bones of the cranium as a way of promoting our own access to what the cranial osteopaths called our deepest resources of health, also called the body wisdom that is circulated via the cerebrospinal fluid that circulates throughout channels of specialized connective tissue called the meninges or the dura, which is a form of connective tissue that's continuous with our spinal cord. And more to say on that as well. I'll see you in a bit.